ask yourself, is this one the crux? And ask that until you find the crux of the debate, and until you understand all that you have to say in order to win. If we do any practice debates tomorrow, which I believe we will have one, we're going to make your 1ARs be 1 minute, okay? Your 1ARs are going to be 1 minute. And the reason we do that is because you have to be able to identify and articulate the crux in a minute. And if that 1 minute should be sufficient to win you the round, because you should be able to identify, this is all we have to say. We can lose the other arguments, but if we win on these, then we win the round. Okay, that's what evaluating the crux and identifying it and presenting it looks like. Okay? Another way of being smart in rounds is argument selection. A lot of advanced teams still struggle with this, and it makes no sense to me. It goes back to the what is a good argument. First off, it makes sense, and secondly, your second layer responses are just absolutely killer. Okay? Don't run arguments you're going to lose on, and don't run arguments you're not going to win on. Okay?
They're a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, they're just a waste of time, and it doesn't add anything or help you win the round whatsoever. I still see so many teams who will use the 1NC as just kind of a throwaway speech, where they'll just like kind of throw stuff out there, and then in the 2NC they'll get to their real arguments. If they were smart and had prepared beforehand, they'd be able to have their 1NC something that contributes to helping them win the round. Select good arguments, please, and run those. Yeah, Noah.
Those arguments that kind of go either way, if you're not sure whether or not to go or not.
Give me an example.
Like, let's say you have a good topicality argument. Like you have a good topicality argument, but it could be defeated if the team knows how to respond to it pretty well.
Okay.
Any argument can
Well,
be lost at some point.
I mean, yes, you can lose every argument, but if you're going to run the topicality argument, you should be confident that they actually are not topical, and you should be able to demonstrate that. And if you don't think you can demonstrate that they're not topical, and you don't think you can convince the judge of that, then don't run it. Does that make sense? A little?
To illustrate this point, how many of you guys think that like human life is inherently valuable? I have seen teams thinking that you might lose an argument is not always a reason to not run the argument. The idea is to have it fit into your position and present it in a way that is compelling.
Third thing you can do in being smart is appealing to your judge. This comes from understanding who your judge is. And so, okay, this really bugs me as a judge, is when teams will be like, what are you looking for? They'll ask for your judging philosophy and experience, and then you'll tell them like 3 things you're looking for or what have you. Generally, one of mine includes like making jokes and making me laugh or something like that. But then they just won't do any of it. Like, they'll just ignore it. If you're like, I've seen rounds where the judge is like, I want you to present slowly, this, that, and the other thing, and the 1AC just speeds through the 1AC because they've just got a pre-written one that they've mapped out at this certain rate that will get done at 8 minutes exactly, and so they can't slow down whatsoever. If you're going to ask the judge what they want and what they're looking for and you don't follow through on it, that looks worse than if you just didn't ask at all. Okay? If you find that questioning the judge, like what's your experience in philosophy, isn't getting you anything helpful, then change up what you ask for. Okay? If saying what's your judging philosophy isn't getting you anything good, then change it up to what's your judging experience, or just something like that. So whatever helps you get more information. Yeah, Luke.
They say speak slow, and then you plan out your one to speak at like a specific rate.
Yeah.
And then 8 minutes. How would you cut it down to make it slow to make it safe?
Okay. Do you guys remember me talking about flexicases?
These are beautiful.
Okay. So having a flexicase is basically where you've got the outline of your speech written, but you don't have it word for word written. Okay.
I have not had a pre-written 1AC in like 2 or 3 years because it's such a burden. You have to actually read what you said instead of tailoring what you're saying to what your judge is responding to.
I didn't trust my partner, so I made him read it word for word. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
1AC?
Yeah, they were terrible jokes too. But, oh, okay. Well,
Princess Bride reference.
we had a Princess Bride reference. He's just not, no, that's not a sick burn. No, the Supreme Court of Ty Humphrey rules that not a sick burn, even though he's not here, okay? Yeah, Noah.
What do you mean like pre-written? Because like all the 1ACs I've written and encountered are basically all the stuff. The only stuff that's written is like taglines and plan mandates. The rest of it's just pre-written evidence. Yeah.
Okay, well, generally teams will have like an opener, conclusion. They'll have more rhetoric in between cards explaining like their next point and such. I always had multiple openers I could choose from depending on what kind of judge we had. generally had the same conclusion. I think one year with 1AC, I wrote 2 different conclusions depending on how much time I had, and then I didn't write in between cards. So I would say, my first point is X, Y, or Z. I'd read the evidence, I'd explain it, and then I'd come up with a transition to the next piece of evidence.
Yeah, and so having a flexa case, what it allows you to do and enables you to do is to identify if your judge is nodding off or not tracking on a certain point, or identify if they are particularly tracking on a certain point, that you can spend more time on it, hammer that home, or if they're not understanding something, you can spend more time on it, hammer it home. But basically adapt to what your judge is looking for. Hannah?
Do you suggest not having as much apparent evidence? In cases, when I did last year, I would leave out the rhetoric and just talk to the judge.
Yeah.
But most of my 8 minutes, probably 7.5 of it was pure evidence that needed to be read for the case to make sense of the
Okay, generally you want to have a lot less than 7.5 minutes of like pure evidence in your 1AC, but I get your point, which is you generally want the evidence to stay the same and your rhetoric just changes. So what you were doing right there sounds very in line with what a flexa case is. So having the rhetoric in between pieces of evidence being your own and adaptable, not something pre-written.
It should be 5 to 6 minutes of straight reading evidence. Yeah, it's a good activity to do. Is just read the evidence like from start to finish of your 1AC without any rhetoric, without any taglines, just with citations and the body of words you'll be reading, and kind of figure out how much time you have. If you're reading more than 6 minutes of evidence, your judge will probably get lost in the warrant structure. They need a bit of white space to kind of make sure they're on the same track.
So if it's a community judge, they're looking for you to explain everything. They're not looking for you to talk to them about parametrics or some theory about debate. Okay, understand your judge and understand what should be argued and what can be argued that will be effective in persuading them. Okay, appealing to your judge, very, very important. Be simple. Okay, that's the next thing. So be smart and be simple. Being simple is really hard, but it's really, really effective when you can say, look, this debate round could be summed up in this sentence right here. You just give it to him. Or understanding your arguments well enough that you can condense them to a 2-sentence explanation or something like that. Simple is harder, but simple is better. If you don't understand an argument, please don't run it, okay? Because when they ask you about it in cross-ex, it's going to be very, very awkward. So I debated Ty round 10 at NITAG couple years, I don't know, I'm old, 2-3 years ago, however long it was. It was round 10, and they were running, like, getting rid of cluster munitions or something like that. And his partner got up there, and he was the 2AC. And so he presented all of these alternatives to cluster munitions that they could go with after they got rid of cluster munitions. And so I stood up in cross-ex, and I was asking him, and I was like, okay, let's talk about these alternatives really quick. And so I said, what was the first alternative? And then I asked him like a question specific to it, and he just didn't know the answer to it. And I was like, okay, let's go to your second alternative. He didn't know much about that either. Third alternative, didn't know much about it. Fourth alternative, didn't know much about it either. And it was really, really awkward because he didn't really know much about his alternatives at all. And that gets the point across, which is if you don't thoroughly understand an argument and you don't thoroughly understand why the argument is true, then don't make it, because 1, your argument's going to be weaker if you're not explaining why. 2, when they get up and respond to it, your response probably isn't going to make much sense because you don't understand why. And 3, in cross-ex, they can make you look like a fool and kill all of your credibility if you don't actually know what you're talking about. Okay? Be time conscious. So this is my spiel between refutation and big idea construction. You shouldn't spend all 8 minutes of your constructives on the negative refuting what the other team is saying. If you're doing that, then you're really missing out. What you as the negative want to do is give the judge something to vote for, not a reason to not vote for the other team, okay? So what the difference between refutation and big idea construction is really simply big idea construction is the philosophy for you as the negative, which is we stand by that drones are inherently immoral or something like that, okay? That automized killing is simply unacceptable, something like that. Big idea construction is different from refutation in that you're not saying their first advantage was this, here are 2 responses. Pretty obvious. You guys understand what refutation is. It's refuting what the other team is saying. Big idea construction is saying here are the 3 or 2 big ideas that we rest our negative case upon, and if you believe those, then you should vote for us. Which means you shouldn't be spending all 8 minutes on refutation. I personally recommend at least 3 minutes in every constructive should be spent, if not more, on big idea construction. At least 3 minutes. I say generally 5 minutes. 3 2 to 3 minutes for a refutation of what they're saying, 5 minutes-ish, 4 to 5 minutes for big idea construction, and then your last minute is for sounding really pretty and good rhetoric and different things like that. Big idea construction is something that the judge can vote for. Refutation is simply a reason to not vote for the other team. Judges buy big idea construction. And this all comes from treating the negative not as refuting the other team's case, but constructing a case of your own as well. Something that the judge can grasp onto. Disadvantages are advantages of the status quo. Different things like that. When you approach it from the perspective of we can have a value and we can show that the status quo achieves that value better than the affirmative team's case, and here are all the advantages of sticking with the status quo, you give the judge something to vote for, which I think is really, really powerful. Be impactful. Okay, impact things through the resolution. I don't think we've talked about this yet, actually. 3 stages of impacting. First stage is where you make your claim. This is where you say, I don't know, drones are inherently immoral, okay? So where you make your initial claim. Step 2 is where you show its application or its function, okay? This is where you say this directly refutes the advantages 1 and 2 of the affirmative team, okay? So first off, you make your claim. Secondly, you provide its application or its function, and that you show how it directly refutes what the affirmative team is saying. Third aspect of impacting through the resolution is you show its application of, after having taken out those 2 advantages, what that means for the resolution and the debate as a whole. So say the affirmative team had 3 justifications, okay, and you took out 2 of them with that initial argument. You say, look, the affirmative team presented you 3 reasons to affirm the resolution today. 2 of those reasons are just completely gone, just off the board. We've destroyed them, burned them to the ground. I don't know, like whatever the barbarian hordes did to Rome. Like we just lit it on fire, okay? It's gone. So once you say that, you say that means that the affirmative team has 1 argument left to support the resolution, and then you go on to kill that. What you do when you impact things back through the resolution is you do a couple things. First off, for community judges, you appeal to the thing that they've been told the most in judge orientation. How many of you listened to judge orientation, the slides and the spiel this last year? Okay. You will hear so much about the resolution in judge orientation. It's really, really crazy. You hear resolution, resolution, resolution. When they get their ballots, it's got the resolution printed on the top. When they're on their flow pad, the resolution's printed on the top as well. They're just hammered home with the resolution. And there's a little talk about cases, but mostly community judges understand cases as simply the way to prove the resolution true, which in essence they are. But the focus for community judges, and especially through judge orientation, is on the resolution. And I think debaters really, really miss that. I know as an advanced debater, I forgot how much the resolution means and is told to judges that it should be important. That made no grammatical sense. I apologize for that sentence.
Debaters remember the case, not the resolution.
Yes. When you impact things to the resolution, when you say, here's my claim, here's how it takes out the 3 advantages provided by the affirmative team, and that means that the only reasons to affirm the resolution that they've given you no longer stand up, you provide the judge a frame of reference and bringing it back to, oh, that's right, this is about the resolution as a whole. Do I believe we ought to reform our policy towards 1 or more countries in the Middle East? Yes or no?